The movie opens up in a rundown office where a marriage counselor is counseling a couple. Due to an argument, the husband walks out, and the counselor notices a change in the wife's demeanor once the husband is gone. The counselor says she can tell that the wife has met someone and that she would like to tell her a story about her sister. We then cut to a montage of Judith, Journey Smollett-Bell, and her husband Brees, Lance Gross, growing up and falling in love in southern Virginia. Eventually, Brees summoned the courage to ask Judith hand in marriage, Judith not knowing what to expect from her mother, who reluctantly say yes with her blessing. Miss Sarah, Ella Joyce, the couple marries in the local church in front of many well-wishers, and they both moves to Washington, D.C. Brees gets a job at a local pharmacy working for the elderly owner Ms. Chapman, Renee Taylor, while Judith takes a job as the in-house therapist at matchmaking dating service company owned by Janice, Vanessa Williams, a French woman. At the practice, Judith is constantly belittled by Ava, Kim Kardashian, Janice's personal secretary, for her lack of sex appeal and fashion sense. At work, Judith is introduced to Harley, Robbie Jones, a Zuckerberg-type computer software inventor who wants to invest in Janice's company. Speaking privately with Judith, Harley asks if he knows her, and he mentions that he's seen her running in the same park he does. Judith counters this by saying he's the shirtless man who is always trying to impress the ladies in the park. Judith then gives Harley a questionnaire about his love life and personality. Over at the pharmacy, Brees and Miss Chapman hire Melinda, Brandy Norwood, to work in the store, although Miss Chapman has a stereotypical view of Melinda. Based on her boots and clothes, she thinks she's a lesbian. At Judith and Brees' small one-bedroom apartment, Judith talks about wanting to start her own practice and move up. Brees encourages her to slow down and suggest to her maybe in 10 to 15 years when they are more established, then she can, but Judith quietly disagrees. She said her mother would be visiting soon because of a church revival she's attending. She playfully imitated her mother's questions about her wifely duties, like cooking, cleaning, and having sex 3 times a week as the Bible supposedly recommends. In a sarcastic tone, Brees questioned the biblical reference for the 3 times a week, jokingly pointing out her past failures in meeting that quota. They both laughed about it. He then decides to take Judith out to dinner to a cheap $5.99 buffet. After dinner, some young thugs make a sexual comment towards Judith who wants to say something, but Brees tells her to walk it off and let it go. Working late one night, Harley was impressed by Judith's work on the computer simulation as it matched her own results. Judith expressed pride in her work and mentioned that her husband would be surprised by her dedication. Harley asked about the length of their marriage, and Judith replied 6 years, adding that they had known each other for 19. Harley asked follow-up questions to determine her age and birthday. This led Judith to reflect on her unfulfilled aspirations. When Harley inquired about her goals, she expressed a desire to obtain her license and open a marriage counseling practice. Harley encouraged her to pursue her dreams, emphasizing her intelligence and brilliance. He offered his support. Harley continued their conversation, noticing a distinct change in Judith's expression. He sensed an underlying dissatisfaction in her marriage. With a seductive tone, Harley asked if she was happy in her marriage. Judith responded with a passive, yes. As the conversation became emotionally charged, Judith attempted to end it by suggesting it was late and she needed to go home. To maintain control of the situation, Harley brought up the questionnaires Judith had given him the previous day, pointing out the absence of any questions related to sex. Judith says, "We aren't that kind of business." Judith explained that she didn't believe in premarital sex, attributing her stance to her Christian upbringing. Harley inquired about her background based on her response. Harley pressed further, asking if her sexual experience was limited to her husband. Judith confirmed this and emphasized their sexual compatibility. Undeterred, Harley questioned how she could definitively assess compatibility without a basis for comparison. Judith struggled to respond, appearing flustered. She then claimed to watch HBO and confidently asserted that she wasn't missing out on anything. Harley intentionally used provocative and unconventional sexual suggestions to arouse Judith. Despite her obvious excitement, Judith dismissed Harley when he pointed out her arousal. Eager to recreate the experience, Judith aggressively attempted to seduce her partner, Bryce, in the kitchen, even resorting to animalistic behavior. Bryce was shocked by her actions and firmly established their bedroom as the exclusive location for intimacy. The next morning, Judith wakes up sexually satisfied and decides to go for her morning run. Though waiting to see Harley, while running, Judith runs into a biker on accident and injures her ankle. Harley shows and blows up at the man. Judith calms him down. Harley takes her to his home to fix up her leg, which was hurt when she fell. Judith was impressed by Harley's home, and once again, Harley tries to verbally seduce Judith by saying he doesn't miss anything about her, such as the way she smiles or some of the blonde hairs mixed in with her natural hair. Judith counters him again by saying she doesn't miss a thing either, like the smell of perfume in his home, or the woman's earring on the table. Bryce shows up unannounced at Harley's home to pick up Judith. The following day was Judith's 26th birthday, and she decides to try something different with her makeup and hair. Bryce doesn't notice and mentions to Judith that he will be working late tonight, and walks out of the bathroom without wishing her happy birthday. When Judith gets to her office, there are roses waiting, and she runs into Ava, who again is taken aback by her appearance. Judith thinks the flowers are from Bryce, but they are from Harley. At home that night, Bryce notices a single cupcake with a candle and realizes his mistakes. He then decides to sing "Try a Little Tenderness" to his wife in nothing but a cowboy hat and his underwear to cheer her up. At work the following day, Janice informed Judith of her upcoming business trip to New Orleans with Harley to conclude their deal. Aware of Judith's marital status, Janice suggested she maintain a friendly and slightly flirtatious demeanor during the trip. However, she emphasized the importance of setting boundaries and avoiding any compromising situations. Shortly afterward, Ava was thrilled when her Judith finally agreed to a makeover. Excitedly, they embarked on a shopping spree, searching for stylish clothes and shoes to revamp. Judith arrives at Harley's private plane, and the two head to New Orleans. In New Orleans, the deal is a success, and the two spend the day exploring the city. Heading back on the plane after much talk, Harley comes on to Judith. Initially, she tries to push him away, but gives in to him, and they have sex on his plane. Arriving back home, Judith tells Harley to never call her again. Harley chases after Judith, right as her mother and Bryce are pulling up. Judith's mother instantly takes a disliking to Harley. While having dinner with Judith and Miss Sarah, Bryce lets it slip that Judith hasn't been cooking, nor has the couple been attending church, which doesn't sit well with the conservative and traditionalist Miss Sarah. At work the next day, Judith is in her office and sees Harley, who's been ignoring her all day. At home that night, Bryce is watching a football game when Harley calls Judith. Judith goes off on Harley, who reminds her she is the one who wanted to end things. Harley then insults Judith while at the same time seducing her. He tells her to tell him that she wants him, to which she does, and that he will be there to pick her up in 20 minutes. Judith walks out of the house. Bryce doesn't notice, but Miss Sarah does. After having sex again with Harley in his home, Judith cooks for him, cleans his house, etc. Harley then mentions to Judith that he doesn't want to go into business with Janice. Instead, he wants to start a business with her on the condition that she leaves Bryce. Judith refuses to leave Bryce, and the two get into an argument, which results in Judith throwing food and walking out, which results in Harley just laughing. When Judith arrives at home, she gets into an argument with her mother. Judith then reveals to her mother that she knows the real reason her dad left, which causes Miss Sarah to slap Judith. Bryce is awoken by all the arguing and asks what's wrong with the two, and they both ignore him. As days passed by, Bryce becomes completely disturbed at work, while Judith ends up going up back to Harley. Harley is reluctant at first, but when Judith has sex with Harley in his Rolls Royce, he changes his mind. Judith has totally changed into a wild and crazy, devious person. One day, when Brice notices her stumbling in their apartment from being dropped off with Harley, he puts two and two together. Judith ends up putting in a 1-week notice with Janice. However, Janice fires her before she can quit, revealing she knows all about Judith's deal with Harley. Judith attempts to have the last word with Janice by revealing that she knows that she's not from Paris like once thought, but rather from Georgia. Caught off guard, Janice then counters her by changing her accent and saying, "Bitch, get out of my office." In the midst of her affair with Harley, Judith still hasn't told Brice, who shows up at Harley's home in the middle of a party. In an attempt to get his wife back, Brice forcefully escorted Judith out of the house, where she shattered his heart with her words. Overcome by emotion, he broke down in tears. Offering to pack her belongings, he was met with her refusal. She then returned to the house. Completely devastated, Brice stormed to his truck, slamming the door in anger and breaking the side mirror. Seeking solace, he went to Melinda's house. In a moment of vulnerability, he attempted to kiss her, only to be reminded of their lack of romantic attraction. Melinda offered him friendship instead. The next day, Judith goes back to the apartment to get her laptop, and her mother is there with members of the local church. The ladies are all praying for Judith, but it falls on deaf ears. Harley becomes frustrated and throws Miss Sarah to the ground, pulling the laptop away from her, and then forces Judith out of the house. Back at Harley's home, the two get into an argument, with Harley acting childish and going as far as to say that Judith is picking her mother over him. Judith responds by saying, "It's not my fault that your mother left you to go to a crack house." Harley then goes into a closet and beats Judith. A shocking reality of what is to come. That night at Melinda's apartment, while having dinner with Brice, he asks her if she thinks she will ever find love again. She says no, due to the fact that she's HIV positive. Melinda then reveals that she got it from her ex-husband, Harley, which alerts Brice. Melinda and Brice rush to Harley's apartment, where they find Harley passed out drunk and Judith bloody and bruised in the bathtub. Brice picks her up and takes her to his truck. He then goes back into Harley's home and gives Harley a beating. Melinda comes into the home and stops Brice before he kills Harley. Harley, dazed but still aware, notices Melinda and says, "Karen, you came back to me." She replies with, "Yes, it's me." Brice then warns Harley to stay away from both Melinda, Karen, and Judith. Cut back to the present day, where the marriage counselor is finishing up the story. The wife asks if this story has a happy ending, and the marriage counselor reveals that it's still being written. Judith did contract HIV as well. The client then tells that the marriage counselor that she has decided to stay with her husband and end the affair. The marriage counselor is next seen walking into Chapman's pharmacy, now run by Brice. It is revealed that she is Judith. Brice tells her he spoke to her doctor about her new meds, and he hopes she's doing okay. A woman and a young boy walk into the store and run towards Brice. It's made clear that Judith and Brice didn't work things out, and Brice remarried, making the present day at least 5 or 6 years forward. Judith then walks out of the pharmacy and heads to church to meet her mother. And there you have it. A story of love, betrayal, and redemption. A tale of a woman caught in a whirlwind of passion and destruction. Judith's journey was a roller coaster of emotions, from blind love to heartbreaking betrayal. Brice, a man shattered by his wife's infidelity, found strength to rebuild his life. This story is a stark reminder that choices have consequences, and that healing takes time. It's a story about survival, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. What do you think about Judith and Brice's journey? Do you think Brice also played a part in pushing his wife to Harley? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping